Hello, everyone. We had a few technical difficulties, so we are getting started a few minutes late, but thanks for bearing with us. I'm going to go ahead and get the slideshow up. Okay, it looks like it's sharing. Does it look good on your end, Dana?
It
Okay.
does.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Again, thank you for bearing with us as we're starting a few minutes late. We're very glad that you've joined us this evening. I'm Heather McClellan Brandusa, and I'm with the California Department of Social Services, Child Care and Development Division, and I'm also a member of the California Early Math Project. With me this evening is Dana, who I'll pass it over to so she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My thanks also for bearing with us as we start late. I'm Dana McVeigh. I'm one of the child development consultants at First Five California and also a proud member of the Early Math team.
Thanks, Dana. So in this session, we're going to explore together the importance of play, what children are really learning through play, and how playful experiences can support children's learning in early science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, or otherwise known as STEAM. We will share with you some materials that we found to help in allowing for rich, playful learning experiences for young children. And we'll also share some online resources that you can access to assist you in leading playful activities with young children in any setting that you might be working in. We also have an opportunity in a little while to get creative and test out a few of the activities together ourselves using materials that you'll have readily available around you. So now I will pass it over to Dana. Well, my slides aren't advancing, so hang on one second. Let me figure out why that's happening. There we go. Okay, now to Dana.
All right, thanks, Heather. As we all know, play is important for children's growth and development. And as children engage in play, they learn valuable life skills. So it is through play that children strengthen their connection, their abilities, often focusing intently on something, focus or fixation that they find interesting for a very long time. And it does help them maintain the ability or to foster the ability to maintain attention skills. As children explore through play, they learn new vocabulary and often communicate very enthusiastically about what they're experiencing and what is holding their interest as they discover. Play also offers children an opportunity to play alongside or with other people that supports their developing social skills. And as children figure out how things work or how to manipulate or build objects, they can gain confidence and problem-solving skills. For many children, play is a way to test new ideas and try out different roles. Play engages children's minds and bodies and helps them understand themselves and the world around them. Play encourages children to think critically, explore their own interests, make discoveries, and communicate effectively with others. So there are many ways that we can support children's play. We can create playful spaces and opportunities for children to explore both indoor and outdoor, provide open-ended materials that lead to discovery and problem solving, and we'll take a look at some of the materials that you might provide for children of a variety of ages. When you observe children at play, you can let those observations inform other objects and opportunities that might enhance their play. For example, if you see a child really absorbed in play or exploration, it can guide you to consider what other materials might lead to a deeper, more fuller investigation and additional discovery. When you talk with children about their play, ask them questions and listen to them explain not just what they're doing, but they're thinking about what they're discovering and learning. Let your child lead their own play without taking over, but being ready to help and support as needed.
Thanks, Dana. So now we'd like to share with you some materials for various age groups that we have found helpful to have around in order to spark playful learning experiences. So of course, this varies depending on the child's age, their developmental level, their individual likes and dislikes, and their temperament. So this is obviously going to be really dependent on the individual child, but this just kind of gives you some ideas that generally are helpful to have around that many children do enjoy. So we're going to start with infants. So some things of interest that infants might find interesting and help support their play are objects like balls and other things that can roll, rattles and other objects that you can shake and make various sounds, containers that are safe for infants, such as bowls, cups, Tupperware type containers, baskets, and so on. Stacking objects like stacking cups, containers, and soft blocks. Again, these can be things that are found in the home or in nature, not necessarily pre-bought toys, but they can also be, toys that you can purchase as well. So they also enjoy objects with different textures. And I forgot about objects with wheels. I was skipping over one. So sorry, objects with wheels, again, things that roll like toy cars, and then also objects with different textures, such as scarves, things that crinkle, things that are bumpy, smooth, or fuzzy. Objects like these are really enjoyable for infants, and they learn so much about cause and effect when they're exploring things like this, how their actions can really cause the object to move in different ways, how they can make different sounds, how objects can fit into space as they explore filling and dumping small containers or baskets, and how they fit into space as they become more mobile and they might try to fit themselves into a small container or basket. They do that as well. So young infants also begin to explore concepts of classification when they're exploring these types of materials. So learning which items make similar sounds or move in similar ways or have similar textures. So now I'd like to ask you to share some of your ideas in the chat of ways that you found and materials that you found that are really engaging for infants. So go ahead and add that now and we'll share. Could be things similar to what we already put on the list, but expanded upon, or maybe there's things that you didn't see on the list that you've used with infants. Yeah, so Amy says water bottles. Absolutely. Plastic water bottles making the crinkling sound. Empty boxes. Sensory instruments, things that make noise. Yes, water play. Yes, so much can be done with water play. Absolutely. These are all great ideas. Tupperware containers, yes. Scarves and beads, absolutely. People often don't think of beads with infants because people think of the small little beads, but they make lots of infant safe beads. And rattles, yeah. Well, these are great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing. So now we're going to move, if my screen will advance. It really doesn't want to do that today. Now we're going to move into toddlers. So just sharing, some activities and materials that would be interesting for toddlers. Again, older infants or toddlers might also be interested in many of the same materials that you'd see on the infant list and that we already shared. But they're also starting to explore things in a little bit different ways. So sometimes there's additional materials that you could add to really expand on what they're learning. So things that they might enjoy are things like water and sand and objects to use for pouring and filling, such as small cups or buckets, funnels, colanders or strainers. They also enjoy objects that can stack and nest, like stacking cups and blocks, or containers or boxes of various sizes that they can use to stack. They begin to explore simple puzzles with knobs or other easy to grip handles, and also begin to explore shapes and how to manipulate objects to fit them into a designated space, like shape sorters or other objects like that. So toddlers also, with their increased mobility, begin to enjoy large objects that can be pushed around, like empty milk crates, low laundry baskets that are heavy enough that they can push them around without tipping over, cube chairs or other objects that really require them to use their large muscles to move around the environment. And they also begin to enjoy objects that make music, such as tambourine, drums, maracas, and xylophones. And they enjoy exploring objects found in nature and recycled objects that they can find new uses for, and they can begin to classify and sort. So you'll also see in this toddler stage that they'll start becoming more engaged in imaginative play. So things like play food, dishes, phones, and dolls, and so on. They enjoy playing with those as well. So we're going to do the same thing. If you can add a few ideas in the chat for toddlers, maybe to expand on what we talked about, or if you have additional, now it wants to advance. There we go. If you have additional ideas for toddlers, add them to the chat. Yeah, wooden leaves from the garden, absolutely. Different table materials that children can explore, magnets, utensils, yeah, pots and pans. Play-Doh, absolutely. Didn't talk about that. This is the age where they really start to enjoy Play-Doh. Everyday household activities or items, I mean, absolutely. And paint, yes. Sensory, always a hit. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And really and pumpkins, yes, absolutely. And these everyday household activities and ideas and things from nature, those free and found objects, they absolutely enjoy. Things that they can have multiple purposes. They can really use their imagination. Sand and water table, light up tables. Yes, those are amazing. Fascinates children and adults. I get fascinated by light up tables too. Playing with light and shadow is always interesting. Varied size containers and water play, great. These are great ideas. Okay, so now I'm going to thank you for sharing, everyone. And now I'm going to pass it on to Dana to share some more activity ideas.
All right, so as Heather mentioned, everything from prior lists will transfer to the next age group and level with just a little more detail, a little more creativity, and maybe a little more functions of texture or sound or temperature even. So as their fine motor skills develop, younger preschoolers begin to enjoy those more challenging materials, things they can manipulate in new ways, take their more enhanced fine pincher grasp out for a spin, see how they can do. So play and skill development mutually support one another. And whatever stage of play they're in for the young preschools coming out of toddlerhood into young preschool stages, whether it's solitary play, dramatic play, they're moving away from parallel play, more into more social, cooperative play. The materials can support that development and support that transition. And maximizing their ability to choose is key. So the list that you see on here is a lot of the things that we've all mentioned, and it provides some basic ideas on standard age-appropriate materials, but I'd like you to consider familiar materials in a different way. Even on this list, when you're looking at Play-Doh that was mentioned, tongs, magnets, magnifying glasses that brings in, spatial relationships and, different senses they use than they will with just textures or sound. They start working with funnels and sieves in a different way. The balancing skills, as we were listening to our keynote speaker, I was thinking how perfect that was, just the levels of different ways children understand balance and the different groups in the pictures that he shared. This is that kind of play, and you can make a balancing scale out of anything. It doesn't have to be a lakeshore scale. The way they understand the tipping point and what makes it work and not work changes with the developmental stages. So this is one of the things that is kind of age group spanning. And then, so we were thinking about these lists just to look at something else in a different way that they can do it entirely different. And we'll get to that a little bit more later with our activities. So as for older preschoolers, if you want to bump up one, Heather. So for the older preschoolers and even beyond, this importance of variety of materials and open-ended play doesn't go away. It just becomes more important. So the open-ended materials really do allow children to decide for themselves how to use them. That's kind of the difference between some of the other examples that were shared during our keynote. So during this type of exploration that we're talking about, Children will use their imaginations and their creativity to come up with their own more complex, nuanced scenarios and the characters and the stories they're telling about the materials as they use the materials in their own way. Again, this was all touched on a little bit, but then as children age, the more details that they get into with their play. So enriching materials will harness all of that natural curiosity and their desire to experiment and explore and problem solve, keeps them staying engaged in meaningful activity, especially when they're doing it with others. So as we look at this last list for the older preschoolers, really basic stuff, props, rubber bands, paper clips, building materials. I'm going to invite you to join in the chat, and I'm going to encourage you to think as you're sharing ideas with each other, to think about the everyday items, the things that you can grab and go, things that aren't necessarily one hit things, art materials. So what other things have you seen kids use in new and exciting ways? Or if you have a funny story to share. I know I had a kid in my preschool class that could literally make a vehicle out of anything. You could give that kid anything and it would become a vehicle somehow. So pipe cleaners, what else? Or any items that were used in unique ways by older kids or preschoolers. Even our toddlers are going to talk on the phone with anything that is remotely phone shaped. So, let's see. Paper towel tubes, my favorite. Cleaners, yeah, anything that can extend or keep adding on to. Packing supplies are fantastic. Cannot beat a fabulous box. 55 years old and I still love me a good box. So yeah, any packing supplies, and that runs the whole gamut. Tape, bubble wrap, still sticks, cotton balls, yeah, all of that. Decorating collages, these are fantastic. Exactly, colored pencils and other things that become drums, pom-poms, all of that. Okay, thanks for sharing, you guys. Okay, so we mentioned the importance of the way that free play kind of changes when they start playing more cooperatively with others, and that kind of brings us to, as you look at going into playing with others, we'll be doing two activities this evening. You can find more activities like this at the Early Math Project website, and by more, there's a lot. And the activities on the website are formatted just like the ones you see on your screen. So they can be used for family math nights, activities to send home for children to do with their families, that they can explore together, or you can use them in classroom and centers settings as well. These are they look just like this, and they're designed to be able to be used in a lot of different ways for a lot of different audiences, for lack of a better word. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana. It's really just going to test my ability to change to advanced slides today. That button must be going out on my, my keypad. Okay, well, as we mentioned before, we're going to explore some of these activity ideas ourselves this evening together. So if you haven't already, please find 10 objects. These can be anything that you have that you can grab around you in the setting that you're in tonight, preferably things that can stack, because we'll be using them to build a tower. So I'll give you a minute to go grab your 10 objects. So we'll just take a little pause, and if you haven't gathered them yet, go grab 10 things that you can stack. For those of you who already have your objects while we're waiting for others, don't you love this picture of this little girl stacking these huge cubes? It looks like some sort of plastic stacking cubes. It's like taller than her. It's amazing. She has to use her full reach to get them up there. All right, so I think that's been about a minute. Hopefully most of you are back. We'll come back together with your 10 objects and we're going to start this activity. So our challenge in this is to build the tallest freestanding tower that you can with the objects you selected. When you finished the building the tower, please share a photo and some comments on our Padlet. The link to the Padlet is in the chat. Did you put it in there yet? Oh, Dana's going to put it in there.
Right now.
In there yet.
Yep.
But there's also a QR code on the screen. If you have the ability to use your phone, I find this is the best way to do it because you can scan it, open the Padlet right on your phone, and then you can take pictures directly from your phone and post it to the Padlet. So you can use that QR code on the screen to do that. And what we are going to do is start building, and Dana will be sharing her tower as well while I put the Padlet up on the screen so we can see what other people are sharing and the wonderful photos coming in. So let's go ahead and do that now. Start building. While you guys are beginning to build, I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint so I can pull up the Padlet. All right, I see Dana's structure being built. What are you using, Dana? Because I have the Padlet up, it's kind of small. Is it Dominoes?
I just like thinking about ordinary same pieces or other things that you have around that you can use in a different way.
Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe because you're a little far from the computer.
So yeah, it is. They're dominoes. I was just thinking about. I had just talked about using other things in different ways. So other game pieces, and other. So I got some dice and some Scrabble pieces, and the dominoes stacked the best after I experimented a little bit. So
Awesome. And we have someone sharing in Padlet. Awesome Mongoose. I love that. That's an anonymous name. That's amazing. And they're using a bunch of cans from the kitchen to stack. These are the types of things that kids really enjoy doing. Just like we were talking about before, the lack of need for these pre-purchase. Sometimes the pre-purchase things are great too, but sometimes, these free and found objects that are just naturally occurring in the environment or in the home are way more interesting to young children, honestly, than some of the pre-purchased materials. So I love that. Gonna refresh it and see if anybody else has things coming in.
And as we're waiting for more pictures, I got inspired by Ryan or Stephanie's cup stacking. And then I thought, I've got cups, we can try that. And then mixing it with like the other materials. And I realized I have a ton of these, they're vitamin boxes, but because I don't use them, they're empty, they actually make some pretty cool blocks that can really elevate some things that you're doing in a way that you wouldn't ordinarily do.
Yes,
So
I love
I don't know
that.
if you can see that or not.
Yes, yeah, I can.
Power there.
And popsicle stick building in the
Yes.
It just disappeared. Let's see if I can scroll down here. See if you can see that popsicle stick building. It looks like we've got some popsicle sticks and little paper cups. That's awesome. A marker tower. Oh, interesting. Looking at this at first, I didn't even know those were markers because they're squared. They look like blocks. So that's awesome.
That's
Using
cool.
markers. Oh, I just saw an interesting one. I have to scroll back down here. It's moving
Mhm.
quickly now. Look at that. All the household items. I love it. There's a
Nice.
bucket and some contact paper, like everything you could think of stacked up on there. It's amazing. That's an amazing tower. That tower might come in handy for our next activity, not to give it away, but
Mhm.
and the shoe boxes. Look at that. Oh, and lovely. We've got a package and some tape and blocks. Oh, and there's a little sheep on top. So cute.
I love the mixed media. There's some found, some toys,
Yes.
some I like that. Oh yeah, this one too.
Oh, look at that. Yes. You wouldn't imagine those little, what are those things called? Pop things, those fidget
Little
toys.
fidget, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't imagine they'd stack so well. That you got a lot of them on there. That's
Mm.
awesome. My daughter had her bag of fidgets, so I use those. Perfect. And it's so colorful. Some more household objects. That's a perfect use for the mathematics book and an early math project session. Got Q-tips and all kinds of things on there. Somebody shared using soap cups. A pantry tower, going into the pantry and grabbing, oh, it's moving really quickly here. Grabbing a bunch of things from the pantry. It looks like maybe a plate on top. Love that.
Heather, in the chat,
Coasters.
oh, very
It's
cool.
very
In the
creative.
chat, there was a question about how to share the pic. There is a link to the Padlet in there, and if you're having trouble with that, maybe we could go back up to the QR code if that would be easier, or Heather, if you have any other troubleshooting.
Yes, let me actually add, so I don't have to stop sharing and resharing. Let me add the QR code to see if I can do that. I might be able to add it to our, let's see. Are you seeing the Let's Play Build a Tower slide right now? Or are you still seeing the Padlet?
Still seeing the Padlet.
Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can fix that. It's very interesting. All right, let me pull it up again here. Okay. Here's our Padlet. I love the coasters because you don't often think about how you can stack those in different ways, not just flat.
Oh, and the thread spools.
Yeah, you keep looking at those, Dana, and sharing them out. And I'm going to go ahead and add the Padlet up here at the top, the QR code, I mean, sorry.
Great. I really like there is a huge variety of the literal found objects because most of you are probably at home with just actual household items, and it once you start doing it yourself, it really kind of opens your thought process up to what you could bring into the classroom or into a more a different setting, or even just with at home during when you're playing with your own kids. Just it really doesn't have to be a structured toy. Anything can be used to build in this way and be encouraging their mathematical thinking. And it's almost when we were looking at the activity stacking 10 of us thing versus stacking, there is one of the pictures that has a Tupperware lid and yogurt containers and butter containers, and that's a lot of different things. And it's a tower. It's stacked.
Yeah,
So
it really is. Okay, the QR code is on the screen. So even if you're
oh,
not in the
perfect.
Padlet yet, because I'm sharing my screen, you'll see that QR code on the right. So if you wanted to go ahead
Hopefully that
and
will help.
scan that, yeah, hopefully that'll work for you. More coasters. There's a little block in
Yes.
between separating each coaster. I love that, making it just a little bit taller. There's some paint here with a little coin on top. I'm not sure if you already shared that one, Dana. I was focused on getting up the
Yeah,
QR code on there, so I'm not sure which ones you shared here. Some
different
paint.
paint bottles. Yeah, I couldn't move it around from where I'm at, so I was just kind of
Yeah.
waiting for things to pop up. We talked about the
Yeah.
thread spools.
Yep. And we had left off there. Great.
And again,
Wonderful
those
idiots.
the two ways that the coasters are used are a really good example, or it can be very quickly about how different age children would do it a little bit differently. So the immediate response of a younger child would just be flat, path of least resistance, just flat to flat to flat. Little older, it might occur to them to put something in between, like that one picture. And then maybe an older child will get super creative, like the last picture that we saw with all the angles and the different wedging and that. So it's actually creating a nice picture of what it can look like for different age groups. So thanks, doing our work for us.
Yeah. Someone said, I wish I could show what I built. Hopefully you figured it out and you're able to show. If you can't, you can put it in the chat. I see some people describing theirs in the chat, which is great.
Yes.
Using different size and shapes pillows to build towers. That's awesome. Pillow tower. Sticky notes and playing cards and medicine bottles. All the household items. This is great. So as we're building some of these things, I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint and think about some of these questions to think together that were on the slide when we were originally looking at the activity. So, to think about what are the shapes of some of the objects. We talked about what the objects were and how you could use, find different uses for them and how tall the tower was. But, there's so much that can be discussed when you're doing this with children. It's really exploring the different shapes of various objects, how different shapes are tricky to build with and why is that? How would you describe your tower to someone else? What's the tallest tower you can build with only 5 of your objects? And how tall is your tower? Exploring that with children and how you could measure that. So like Dana, with your tower that you were building, how could you tell how tall your tower was if you didn't have, a measuring tape or a ruler? What kinds of ways could you explore measuring that?
And even the little girl in our picture here, it would be a great predictor activity because she's clearly intent on getting it as high as possible, and she's doing a fantastic job for as little as she is. I'd be interested to hear her thoughts on how far she thought she could go and what she would need to make that happen. Like if she would need help getting herself higher or what would need to happen. So a little bit of predicting.
And you hear kids talk about how tall things are in relation to themselves a lot of times. Like it's as tall as me, or it's as tall as 2 of me, so really being able to explore those together. How many more objects could you add before it were to knock down? You all made very fabulous structures with your 10 items, but what if you were to add more? How far do you think you could go before it fall down? And what kinds of things makes a good tower base? Dana was talking about that, exploring different objects and being able to determine what things make a good base. You need a solid base. If you use certain materials, your tower looks a little wobbly, but if you have a solid base, maybe not. Somebody said using stacking river rocks. Yes, absolutely. So any final thoughts on these to think about questions, Dana, before we move on? In relation to your own tower?
Even as you're doing all the talking of them through and they're predicting, you can sneak in a little bit of narration by, holding on to their thoughts and what they think is going to happen and comparing it to what actually does happen. If they keep building or keep after they share an idea, try it out and see what happens.
Yeah, and like to get them thinking about why they think that happened. They're really kind of exploring why, and then testing out, like Ryan was talking about in our keynote session about relaunching the activity. It's not about whether or not their tower succeeds or fails really, but it's about the process of exploring it, trying it, discussing it, trying different things, and just that continuous cycle of exploring, investigating, and relaunching. helps them to learn about so many different concepts when they're doing this. So thank you everybody for participating in that. That was really fun. I love to see all your pictures of your towers that you created. And I hope that kind of sparks some ideas of how you could do something like this, this type of activity with children, and using some of these open-ended questions to really spark their thinking and creativity, as Dana mentioned, really just kind of narrating what you're seeing and asking them lots of open-ended questions to really help them examine their thinking. So now we're going to move on to our next and final activity. So for this one, you're going to keep your 10 objects that you already gathered, because we're going to be using it for the next activity as well. Let's see if it's going to let me move the slides. Yay, okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab an object that rolls to do this activity. So it doesn't have to be a pumpkin, as the title indicates, but really anything that you have near you that rolls. It could be a ball, a lemon, a small can. Lots of you already built your structure with things that can roll, so you could repurpose one of those. A roll of tape, anything like that. So I'll give you a minute, if you don't already have something that can roll, to go grab that and come back. All right, that wasn't quite a minute, but I think a rolling objects is probably easier to grab than the 10 objects. So hopefully we all have our rolling object. Dana, did you get one?
I do. I have a couple different to try out.
All right, perfect. So we'll all come back together now, and with your 10 objects and now your new rolling object, your challenge is to build a structure that will stop your rolling object and still stay standing. So you want it to not let your rolling object get through, but also not have it get knocked over by your rolling object. So we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to build together, and Dana's going to share what she's building, and we are going to test it out with your rolling object. And please share a photo and some comments in the Padlet or the chat if you can't get into the Padlet. The Padlet is the same. You'll see there's just a separate column on the right that says Pumpkin Stopper, so you can add your comments or your pictures to that column that says Pumpkin Stopper. I'll share that screen in a second, but I wanted to give you plenty of time to see the QR code here. And
I put the Padlet link in the chat again, so it's a little closer to where we're working.
Perfect. So the link for the Padlet is in the chat again, and I'm going to share my screen so we can see the Padlet, and it'll also have the QR code since we added it. So if it's taking you a minute to get your object, then you'll still have it. Let me go ahead and stop sharing and pull that up while you're testing out your experiment here. All right, here's our Padlet, and the QR code is up there if you're needing to have that again. It should be on the screen. I just noticed the big tower of PS4 games. That's amazing. My teenager would love that. Great tower. So Dana, what are you using to? Oh, I see we have a rolling object of a mandarin. That's perfect. That's awesome. What are you using, Dana?
I've got a couple of different things. I have a car. Something like a little ball of aluminum foil.
Oh, okay. A ball of foil.
Yeah, and then this is just a ball from a game, but it's really heavy because it's, I don't know, it's something of my grandson's. It's
looks like a mousetrap ball or something.
So, and then a couple of different colors, what it would take for each one, or what it wouldn't.
Oh, that tower did not like your rolling object. Your rolling object conquered it.
My foil isn't doing anything.
The foil is not. I wonder why that is. So I wonder why your car You're a little far from the mic, but I see what you're doing with your hands. I think you're talking about the weight between the two.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the heavier ball.
Yep,
Yeah.
that did it.
Yeah, so the weight, that's a really good point. And these are things, observations that you can make with children, and help them. Sometimes we don't, I was going to say help them discover the answer, but sometimes we don't even know the answer. It's really about discovering together and trying things out together and going, I wonder why that is. And then you can make these discoveries together. So some of the examples we have here, we've got a lemon going into, so our marker tower became like a marker stopper. It's kind of like when you're on the highway and you see those big containers full of water, right? It's like a barricade of some kind for the lemon. That's great.
Yeah, that actually gave me, watching our friend in the Padlet, gave me an idea. I'm wondering if I stack my dominoes up a different way,
Yeah.
if that heavy ball was still going to knock them over.
Yeah, kind of like what we were talking about with a more stable base. You
Right.
don't need this one to be tall necessarily, but you need it to be strong. So somebody else did the same thing with CDs. It's a lower stack, but it's enough to stop this big roll of tape, it looks like.
Okay, yeah, so it gets a little hard to hear, so I'm gonna go ahead and build my lower bases and then I'm gonna try again. And now that they're
Okay.
I'll turn my camera so you can see how it goes.
We have the same structure here with all the household items, but somehow the ball ended up on the top. I'd be curious to see how that happened. It must have bounced and landed up there or something. It didn't knock over though. That's great. We got paint and some glitter, and it's the glitter bottle versus paint. I love that. Which one is going to win? Obviously the paint.
My prediction was that the heavy ball would still knock over everything because it's really heavy. And I was right. It did. It did. I thought that the tinfoil would not tip over anything because it wasn't very effective before, but it did actually knock over the small dice. Even with it for some reason it skidded them right and popped them right out.
Yeah.
And then the car continued to knock over everything.
The car is the most successful.
It is.
Probably rolls a little straighter with those wheels, carries a little bit more weight.
I'm wondering if the bumper doesn't wedge up underneath the things and is creating some
friction
that the other ones don't.
This one says the PlayStation Tower definitely didn't resist the mini pumpkin. So the mini pumpkin won. I don't even see the PlayStation Tower anymore. It demolished it. It's probably on the ground now. Oh, this one. Let's see. I'm not sure if we can share a video on Padlet, but I'm going to go ahead and click it. So this one says a pumpkin stopper video, and it's got the river rocks. They've got a structure with a box of Unifix cubes and some other things. So let's see if we can see the video. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
There we go. Could you see it? I wasn't sure if it would show the video.
Yeah, no, it worked. Or I saw it anyway.
Yeah, that's great. My structure did not topple.
Great. And thank you, whoever that was. It was actually using a pumpkin. Way to follow directions.
Yes.
Great. Rolled a bouncing ball in a stack of cars. Stick them pom-poms. I like so many of these that are videos. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really neat. Okay, so just like we were talking about before, let me pull the PowerPoint back up here. Some open-ended questions that we can use and we can think about together. You can think about your structure that you built and you can put some of your reflections in the chat. But what are the dimensions of your structure? How could you look at that with children? How could you explore that together?
Okay.
Did you build the structure differently than the tower? If so, why? So we kind of talked about that, right? That the marker tower ended up, instead of being tall, it ended up being a barricade, and Dana tried that with hers as well. How does it compare to your first structure? Did you have something to add, Dana?
Just that Carolyn's encouraging us to wrap it up.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Carolyn, because I'm not good at paying attention to the time. So thanks again. So this was a really fun activity, and it was lovely to see your ideas. And it was a challenging one. And I hope you can see, how some of these things that children can explore and what they can learn when they're engaged in this type of activity. So as we wrap up, it's not going to let me move it. Come on. There we go.
I'm gonna put the last
As we wrap up, we just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. If you're looking for more playful resources, you can find them in the Early Math Project monthly Substack newsletter. That link is up here on the slide, and I think Dana will put those in the chat for us as well. It's a free newsletter, so you can sign up with the bit.ly on the slide, and we'll also, as I said, place the links for all of these in the chat. There's also resources on the Early Math Project website and the Count Play Explore website that you can find, and some of the ones that Dana shared in her slide earlier came from the Early Math resources site. And yeah, if you have any other questions, we'll stick around. You can add them to the Q&A here, and also you can send them to our Early Math Project email. And I don't know if I gave you that link to add in the chat, Dana, but it's really... You got it. Okay. Yep. earlymathca@gmail.com. So if you have other questions, you can follow up with us. And if you have suggestions for activities or book reviews, we're always happy to get that feedback as well. So you can email us then. Thank you again so much for joining us this evening, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Also, I didn't mention, but you can leave this session and go back to the sessions section of the event page and join the closing session. Thank you so much.